My family told everyone I was dead, not metaphorically. They literally told relatives, friends, and neighbors that their son Travis passed away 6 years ago. I found out because my cousin Zoe ran into me at a hardware store and screamed like she was seeing a ghost. That was 3 years ago, and I've been planning this moment ever since. I'm 28 now. When I was 22, my parents kicked me out and erased me from existence. Not for drugs, not for stealing, not for anything they've told people. The real reason? I caught my older brother Omar cheating on his wife with my mother's best friend, and when I refused to keep it secret, they chose him over me. Omar has always been the golden child, the one who could do no wrong. When I told my parents what I saw, my mother Elizabeth called me a jealous liar trying to destroy Omar's marriage. My father Troy said I was pathetic and bitter. They gave me 48 hours to apologize and take it back. I didn't apologize because I saw what I saw. So they erased me, changed locks, blocked numbers, told everyone I overdosed and died. That's why at the party my aunt was asking if I was the thief and my uncle shouted about me stealing house money for drugs. They built an entire narrative about who I was to justify cutting me off. Every lie they told made them the sympathetic parents who lost their troubled son instead of the people who threw away their kid for refusing to help cover up an affair. Chat, I need you to understand the layers of evil operating here. This family didn't just cut him off. They didn't just go no contact. They held a creative writing session and decided, you know what would really sell this? Let's kill him off. Drug overdose arc, troubled youth storyline, give us maximum sympathy points. They sat around a table and workshopped his fake death like they were pitching a Netflix limited series. And the audacity to make him a thief and an addict in their little fan fiction, they gave him a whole character assassination, so thorough that Marvel villains are taking notes. These people didn't just close a door, they burned the house down and then told the fire department it was the house's fault. Here's what they didn't count on, though. I didn't spiral. I got a job in warehouse management, moved across town, built a life, and every single anniversary, every holiday, every birthday post Gina made on her public Instagram showing their perfect family, I thought about the day I would walk back in and make them explain to everyone why the dead son was standing there, breathing. Their 35th anniversary was at a rental hall this past Saturday. I showed up at 8 p.m. in a decent suit I bought specifically for this. The second my mother saw me, she stood up from the head table and asked what the hell I was doing there, loud enough for the whole room. My father immediately waved at their hired security. Omar walked up and shoved me hard, telling me to leave before he beat my ass. Gina grabbed the microphone and announced to everyone that this was her brother, the one they don't talk about. I need everyone to appreciate that this man went shopping. For this moment, he walked into a store, tried on suits, looked in the mirror, and thought, yes, this is the one I'll wear when I resurrect myself at their anniversary party. That's not revenge. That's craftsmanship. And you know what kills me about narcissistic families? Their first instinct is always reputation management. Mom's not thinking, oh my God, my son is alive. She's thinking, oh my God, everyone is watching. These people have been performing the grieving parents role for 6 years, and suddenly their dead son shows up looking better than the brother who's supposedly alive and thriving. The cognitive dissonance in that room must have been suffocating. People started murmuring and pulling out phones. My mother turned to the guests apologizing, saying I was mentally unstable and had been harassing them for years. My father added that I wasn't invited for obvious reasons and they tried keeping this private. 2 security guards grabbed me rough. But before they dragged me out, I pulled a black envelope from my jacket, walked to the head table, and placed it in front of my parents. Didn't say one word, just smiled and let them escort me out while the entire room recorded. By 2 a.m., they were all outside my apartment. Elizabeth, Troy, Omar, Gina, pounding on my door, screaming my name, demanding to know where I got what was inside that envelope. I didn't answer. I sat on my couch listening to them lose their minds for almost an hour before they finally left. Now they won't stop trying to contact me. And I need to tell you what was in that envelope because it's about to blow up their entire world. The black envelope. Chat, this man understood theater. He could have emailed. He could have texted. He could have stood there and monologued like every other revenge story. But no. He went full dramatic presentation, dropped the envelope like a mic, smiled, and let himself get dragged out while the whole room documented everything. And then, he just goes home and sits on his couch listening to his entire family have a collective mental breakdown outside his door for an hour. He's in there probably making tea, maybe watching TV, just vibing while they're outside losing their entire minds. The power dynamic shift is so violent I felt it through my screen. 6 years of being powerless, 6 years of being dead, and now they're the ones begging at his door. That's not petty revenge. That's a masterclass in patience. Update 1. So the comments are asking what was in the envelope. Buckle up because this gets better. 3 years ago, when Zoe screamed at that hardware store, she thought she was hallucinating. Once she calmed down, she told me everything. The overdose story, the funeral they apparently had for me with a closed casket and crying relatives. How my parents accepted condolences for months. She was shaking telling me this. And then she said something that changed my entire approach. She said Omar's wife still didn't know about the affair, that nobody knew except my parents and Gina, who helped cover it up. For 3 years, I sat on that. I worked, I saved money, and I tracked down proof. The envelope contained printed screenshots of text messages between Omar and my mother's friend from 6 years ago. I got them from the friend's ex-husband, who divorced her 2 years after I was kicked out. Found him through LinkedIn, and met him at a bar where he told me she confessed everything during their divorce. He still had the screenshots backed up because he thought he might need them. When I explained who I was and what my family did to me, he sent me everything. So yeah, my parents knew those texts existed. They knew I had actual proof now. This man spent 3 years doing reconnaissance like he was planning a heist. LinkedIn stalking the ex-husband, meeting at bars, collecting evidence. He built a whole case while his family thought he was just out there being dead. And here's what gets me about the ex-husband immediately handing over everything. When a complete stranger tells you, hey, my family faked my death because I saw your wife cheating, and your response is, say no more, here's everything I have. That tells you exactly what kind of people we're dealing with. That man saw Travis and immediately recognized a fellow survivor of these people's chaos. The enemy of my enemy is my LinkedIn connection, apparently. Sunday morning, I finally opened my door to find Gina sitting in the hallway. She had been waiting since 6 a.m. And here's where it gets complicated because Gina started talking and would not stop. She said, I had no idea what I just did. That Omar's wife saw the party videos on 3 different relatives' Instagram stories. That she was already asking questions about who I was and why the family reacted that way. That their mother had been up all night trying to figure out how to explain a son they told everyone was dead. I told Gina I knew exactly what I did, and I had been planning it for 3 years. She got angry then. She said this wasn't just about Omar anymore, that if his marriage fell apart, their parents would be humiliated in front of everyone they know, that their fathers standing at their church, their mother's reputation, everything would collapse. She kept saying I was being selfish, that I should have just stayed away, that what happened 6 years ago was complicated and I didn't understand the full picture. I asked her what picture I was missing. They told people I was dead, Gina. They had a fake funeral. She said it wasn't fake to them, that Mom grieved like it was real, that they had to do something because I was threatening to tell everyone about Omar and it would have destroyed him. It wasn't fake to them. Mom grieved like it was real. Chat. The mental gymnastics required to say this sentence out loud and think you're making a valid point. Gina is essentially arguing that because Mom put on a convincing performance, because she really committed to the bit, that somehow makes it okay. By that logic, every method actor should be forgiven for any crime as long as they really felt it in the moment. Your Honor, yes, my client committed fraud, but he grieved like it was real money he was giving away. And the way Gina keeps framing this as Travis being selfish for not staying dead, the entitlement. To expect someone to just accept being erased from existence because it's convenient for everyone else's reputation. This family thinks loyalty is a one-way street that only flows toward them. I just stared at her. They grieved my fake death because I wouldn't lie for Omar, and somehow I'm the villain. Then she dropped something I wasn't expecting. She said Omar's wife was coming to my apartment that afternoon, that she found my address from the building number visible in one of the party videos, and she wanted answers directly from me. Gina begged me not to show her the screenshots. Said if I had any love left for this family, I would let them handle it their own way. I told Gina I stopped being part of this family 6 years ago when they chose Omar's affair over their own son. She left crying, and I sat there realizing Omar's wife was about to knock on my door wanting to know why her in-laws told everyone their son was dead, rather than let him expose whatever secret they were hiding. And I had to decide how much truth she deserved. If you had any love left for this family, is wild manipulation to attempt on the person you collectively pretended was dead for 6 years. Like, ma'am, you killed the love. You held a funeral for it. You accepted condolences for months while it decomposed in a casket that was empty because the love was never actually dead. You just decided it was inconvenient. And now you're asking if any of it survived? Gina really showed up thinking she could appeal to family bonds that they severed. The delusion is genuinely impressive. Also, Omar's wife doing her own detective work from Instagram stories and showing up ready for answers. She's already operating like someone who knows she's been lied to. She just doesn't know the full extent yet. Update 2. Omar's wife showed up at 3 p.m. Her name is relevant now, so I'll call her what Zoe always called her, which is just Omar's wife because apparently she never really bonded with the extended family. That detail matters. She stood in my doorway and said she just needed to understand one thing. Why would a family fake their own son's death? I invited her in, and for the next 2 hours I told her everything. She didn't cry at first, she just kept asking questions. When did I see them together? Where? How long did I think it went on? Why didn't I tell her back then? I explained that I tried to tell my parents first because I thought they would handle it, that I was 22 and naive enough to think family meant something, that when they demanded I stay quiet and I refused, they didn't give me a chance to tell anyone else before erasing me completely. Then I showed her the screenshots. She read through them for maybe 10 minutes without saying anything. Then she asked if I had more. I said that was everything the ex-husband had. She nodded and said Omar told her I was a drug addict who stole from the family, that my parents said I overdosed at a shelter downtown, that she went to my fake funeral and watched my mother sob over an empty casket. I told her I was sorry she got lied to. She said, "Don't be sorry, be thorough. Don't be sorry, be thorough." Omar's wife came to that apartment ready to collect everything. She didn't show up crying and confused. She showed up like an investigator building a case. And you know what that reaction tells me? This isn't the first time she suspected something was off with this family. The fact that she never bonded with the extended family, the way she immediately shifted into information gathering mode. This woman has been quietly cataloging red flags for years and just got the key to finally understand what she was looking at. She attended a fake funeral. She watched her mother-in-law sob over an empty casket for a son who was alive and well across town. The betrayal she's processing isn't just about the affair. It's about realizing her entire marriage existed inside a lie that everyone maintained together. Then she left with copies of everything. Monday morning, my father showed up at my job. Just appeared in the warehouse parking lot waiting by my car after my shift. First time I'd seen him one-on-one since I was 22. He looked older, tired, and absolutely furious. He didn't waste time. He said I had destroyed 6 years of peace for this family, that Omar's wife had confronted Omar the night before, and now they were separated. That my mother hadn't stopped crying since Saturday. That Gina's husband was asking questions about what kind of family he married into. That their church community was confused because several members saw the party videos and were asking why the family's dead son crashed the anniversary. I told him everything he just described was a consequence of his own choices. He got closer to my face and said, I needed to understand something. He said the affair happened once. That Omar made a mistake and it was over immediately. That the woman meant nothing. He said I was going to ruin lives over one mistake. I asked him if declaring me dead was also one mistake. If the fake funeral was a mistake. If 6 years of telling relatives I was a thief and a junkie was a mistake too. He said they did what they had to do to protect the family. I told him no. They did what they had to do to protect Omar. And now Omar gets to face what he should have faced 6 years ago. 6 years of peace. No, 6 years of suppression. There's no peace in a lie, there's just quiet. And the way Troy immediately tried to minimize the affair as one mistake that meant nothing. Like that's the issue here? The affair was the catalyst, but the actual crime was the cover-up. They committed ongoing harm, fresh lies every day, active maintenance of a false reality. The affair might have been one moment, but choosing to fake your son's death was a decision they had to remake constantly for 6 years. Every time someone mentioned Travis, every time they repeated the overdose story, every time they posted family photos that deliberately excluded him. That's not one mistake. That's 6 years of daily choices. And Troy has the audacity to show up at this man's job on his own territory and threaten him? The entitlement is genetic in this family. My father said if I kept pushing this, he would make sure I regretted it, that I had no idea what I was starting. I told him I knew exactly what I started. I've known for 3 years. He left without another word. Tuesday, Zoe texted me saying the extended family was splitting. Half thought I was justified. Half thought I should have stayed dead and quiet. And my grandmother, who I hadn't thought about in years, apparently wanted to see me. That's where I'm at now. My grandmother wants to meet Thursday. The woman who attended my fake funeral wants to talk to the grandson she thought was buried. Half the family thinks he should have stayed dead and quiet. Let that phrase exist in your brain for a second. They're not even arguing about right or wrong anymore. They're arguing that the convenience of his non-existence was preferable to the disruption of truth. These are people who would rather maintain a comfortable lie than deal with an uncomfortable reality. And they're genuinely confused about why that's a problem. This is how dysfunction perpetuates itself generationally, by making truth-tellers into villains and asking the wounded to prioritize everyone else's comfort over their own existence. Grandmother coming back into the picture is interesting, though. Someone who's been alive this whole time knowing something was wrong and chose silence. She's got her own accountability to reckon with. Final update. Thursday. I met my grandmother at a diner near her assisted living facility. She's 81 and sharp as ever. Zoe drove her because she doesn't drive anymore. First thing she said when she saw me was that she knew. She said she always knew something was wrong with that funeral. No body, no real explanation. And Elizabeth wouldn't let anyone ask questions. She said she spent 3 years telling herself she was just a paranoid old woman who couldn't accept her grandson's death. I asked her why she never pushed harder. She said because Troy threatened to cut her off from the rest of the grandchildren if she kept asking. That she was alone after my grandfather died and couldn't lose everyone. So she stayed quiet and hated herself for it. Then she told me something that reframed everything. She said Omar had always been Elizabeth's favorite because Omar reminded her of herself, willing to do anything to maintain appearances. She said my mother valued image over everything, and I threatened that image by being someone who couldn't be controlled. She asked me what I wanted now, if I wanted back into the family. I told her no. I told her I wanted them to live with what they did where everyone could see it. I wanted the people who attended my fake funeral to know they cried over a lie. I wanted Omar's wife to have the truth she deserved. I wanted my parents to explain to their church friends why they fabricated a son's death, and I wanted to watch it happen. She nodded and said she understood. Then she said she was changing her will, that the house she promised to Troy and Elizabeth was going to me instead. Not because I asked, not because I needed it, but because she was done pretending her daughter-in-law was a good person. I didn't expect that, but I didn't refuse it either. Grandmother dropping generational wisdom and changing the will in the same conversation is absolutely the redemption arc I needed from her. She spent years knowing something was wrong, being silenced through isolation threats, hating herself for compliance. And now she's finally choosing truth over family peace. That distinction she made about Elizabeth and Omar both valuing image over everything, that's the key to understanding this entire family. They're not evil in the cartoon sense. They're something more insidious. They're people who decided that looking good was more important than being good. And once you make that trade, there's no lie you won't tell to maintain the performance. Travis was dangerous to them because he has the one trait they can't tolerate. He's someone who won't pretend. That makes him uncontrollable. And uncontrollable people expose the controlled narrative. Friday, my mother finally confronted me directly. She showed up at my apartment and I let her in because I wanted to hear what 6 years of silence had built up to. She tried everything. She said I was tearing apart the family over ancient history. She said Omar's wife was filing for divorce and taking the kids. She said Gina's husband was reconsidering their marriage because he didn't trust the family anymore. She said their church group had been asking questions and some members stopped speaking to them. Then she tried guilt. She said she grieved me, that the funeral was real to her emotionally even if I was alive, that she convinced herself I was dead because losing me that way was easier than admitting they made a terrible choice. I asked her if she expected that to make me feel sorry for her. She said she expected me to understand that parents make mistakes. I told her this wasn't a mistake. A mistake is forgetting a birthday. This was a coordinated 6-year campaign to erase me and protect Omar. They told people I stole from them. They told people I was on drugs. They held a funeral. They grieved performatively while I was across town building a life they refused to be part of. She started crying and said she didn't know how to fix this. I told her she couldn't fix it. That was the point. Some things you just have to live with. A mistake is forgetting a birthday. That line. That's the clarity that only comes from processing trauma for years and finally getting to deliver the truth directly to the person who caused it. Elizabeth tried every manipulation tactic in the book, minimizing, guilt-tripping, playing victim, asking for empathy, and Travis just kept calmly naming reality. That's what healing looks like, by the way. Not screaming, not revenge spiraling, just the quiet power of stating facts that the other person can't argue with. And when she said she didn't know how to fix it, that's the moment she finally understood. For 6 years, she operated like there would never be consequences, like the lie was permanent, like Travis would stay dead forever. Now she's learning that some damage is irreparable, not because forgiveness is impossible, but because trust, once fully destroyed, doesn't rebuild on demand. She left and I haven't heard from her since. It's been 2 weeks now. Omar is living in a motel. His wife has a lawyer. My parents stopped going to church. Gina hasn't spoken to anyone. And half the extended family has reached out to me privately saying they believe me. I'm not happy. I'm not healed. But I spent 6 years being dead to these people and now they have to explain to everyone why the dead son came back and brought the truth with him. That's all I wanted. I'm not happy. I'm not healed. And that is the most honest ending to a revenge story I've ever heard. Because movies and TV have sold us this lie that confrontation brings closure, that revenge brings satisfaction, that getting even makes you whole. But Travis isn't whole. He's vindicated, not healed. There's a difference. He spent his formative adult years, 22 to 28, building a life while also building a case against his own family. That takes a toll even when you win. What he got wasn't happiness. What he got was the removal of a weight he'd been carrying for 6 years. The weight of being the only one who knew the truth. Now, everyone knows. And that doesn't fix what was broken, but it does mean he doesn't have to carry it alone anymore. That's what he wanted. Not revenge, really. Just to stop being the only one who had to live with what they did.